Hey folks, Roger Gonzalez here with LocalTheatreNY.tv and Alliance Media Theatricals. I have with me today on Zoom, and thank you for being here, Emileena Pedigo, who is a producer, has a company called The Show Goes On Productions. You are a producer, manager, and a coach for artists in development. Tell me about the artist in development thing.
So I coach artists basically across discipline on how to build a sustainable career in the arts, which is much more challenging than you might think. And it's more than just doing a business plan or adding a little bit of business and talking financials. It's really about finding your vision, honing in on your vision, and creating a brand around that vision that you can package and make sure there's continuity in your work, so that I actually try to get artists out of the gig mentality where it's just project, and think about the larger picture in which all of your projects fall under. So it's just about creating a sustainable career.
I really love that. I think that's so phenomenal. I don't know that there's many people doing exactly that. And you're right. I work with projects and projects in development. It's very different from creating that inner artistry that the people behind those projects are involved in. Now, how did you get into this type of consulting, this type of coaching?
So I started at the Midtown International Theater Festival. And then really I started as actually a stage manager, and then I kind of turned into a producer while I was there, because I kind of just, I was the managing producer for many years there. And then I left to start my own company. And the more I learned about theater, the more I learned that it didn't quite make business sense. So I went through the CTI 14-week class. And, and actually there is where I learned that 1 in 5 shows on Broadway is recouping. Now that stat is old because I went through it many years ago, but it hasn't gotten much better, if not worse than that. So I just thought that didn't make any sense. So I kind of left to study business first, actually, to see if there was a way to make theater a little bit more business savvy. And then when I learned more business, I learned that it was not as easy to change the theater industry as I wanted it to be. Yeah. So I kind of went beyond just theater, and I was drawn to the music industry because music industry is such a renegade. It's like the wild, wild west in the music industry, because, you have these independent artists coming up now without labels ever since Napster made music for free for everybody. So there's opportunity there. And I kind of saw that as my doorway into creating change within the arts. And then the ultimate idea, because my passion is theater, is to kind of bring it back to theater. But then I just found the more I worked with artists across discipline, and even in industries like dance and film, that I learned we all have what I call the artist mentality. And this includes producers, because I am an artist at the end of the day. In fact, I learned that through this kind of roundabout way of getting through business. So I think that by cultivating the artist mentality is how we can preserve a sustainable future for the arts. And so that's when I started working with individual artists. And also just because I was really passionate, I was a manager for a few artists who I really believed in, music, singer-songwriters actually. And then now I'm writing a book about artist development. So
well, tell us about the book, and then I want to get to the subject of what is the, as best as you can describe it, what is the artist mentality? But first, tell us about the book.
Yeah, it's a good topic. So the book is called Another Way, The Tao of Artist Development. And it's called Another Way because I believe the current way is not serving the majority of artists. So yes, there are still artists who can raise through the ranks and become huge superstars, stars of Broadway, or, superstar music stars, whatever, but it's not the majority. And all arts industries are ripe with exploitation. Although actually, just a side little note, because I know this is primarily theater. Theater in many ways is the best as far as exploitation goes. I mean, everybody's getting, even the producers are getting exploited, as far as nobody's making money. Right. But in general, I find less a little less corruption in the theater industry, which I appreciate. So shout out to theater for that. There's a lot of corruption and exploitation going on everywhere else. But anyway, so my book is an expose of the arts in America, kind of how we got here, why we're here, and how we can change that. So, and I compare my work to the nonviolence movement, because it is kind of political, because I would like to see an arts industry without exploitation. So I would like to bring down all the exploiters and get rid of that. And the only way I believe to do that is through one artist at a time. So it's kind of, in that regard, it's like the nonviolence movement, but it's really about cultivating the artist themselves and helping them build their own business out of their art, and creating a sustainable career. And I show them that by walking them through Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. So it's a very complicated book, but it's all in there, and hopefully it will be out by the end of the year. So it'll all start to make sense. And I also tie in, I am a Taoist, so I tie in a little bit of philosophy, since I'm referencing Joseph Campbell anyways. And I am talking about the industries as a whole. And, again, it's the larger picture. I just believe that we can change the larger picture by strengthening our individual artists.
Wow, that, first of all, I have to say that the timing, is incredible. In spite of what's happening, which we're going to get to right now with the stay-at-home and the COVID crisis, but the timing in general is great, because now there has been some expose or exposure, if you will, of some of the corruption, let's say in the film industry, and in some of the other industries. So this is great timing for this book. I will definitely want to read that book. Now let's jump, before we get to the current crisis, let's jump to what you define as the artist mentality. Tell us a little bit about, what that is and how an artist should be thinking and functioning, and the things that you do.
Sure. So really, the artist mentality is one that I think it all boils down to how you define art, right? Because it's one who's kind of tends to get, I think society might use the words distracted by art. That, someone who really wants to take the time to develop some kind of art, whether that be a theatrical production, a play, or a film, or a dance piece, or a song, or whatever it is. It's somebody who is drawn to creating. Creation is a good part of that too. I have a whole chapter about what is art and how we define art, and I actually define it as deviation, a deviation from the norm, because there's not a clear path for artists. The paths that we are familiar with as artists are usually rising through the ranks of a system, and then finding an organization, or in the case of theater, I suppose it would be money. It's always about money, and finding somebody else to do that for you. So even a producer who has a project that they want to license or they want to develop, they have to find somebody else, an investor, to invest in it, unless they're investing in themselves, which in fact I would say is a great model to pursue, because when you put your art and your passion in the hands of somebody else, that is how exploitation breeds, and obviously it doesn't always happen. There's some excellent stories about great partnerships, especially in the theater, where you can find investors who are really passionate about it. The artist mentality is one that tends to give our art to somebody else, put it in somebody else's hands. So I want to try to bring that back.
I have to ask you this question, because I obviously I come across a lot of artists and creators, and occasionally I come across someone who will say to me, I only want to write. I don't want to bother with anything else. In fact, I know a couple of playwrights and writers who have spent an entire lifetime writing, having a day job, and their work just sits there because they just don't want to give it, maybe they don't have the ability to even sell the notion of someone selling their work. Is that a problem that you think exists a lot, this inability, or maybe this lack of combination and marriage between business and artistic development?
That's definitely the artist mentality. I tend to fixate on the art side of it and put these blinders on and forget about the business side. And then also, I think there's a fear about the business side. A lot of artists think, well, if I use my brain, I only have one brain, and if I use that brain to think about the business, then it's gonna compromise my artistic side. You know, like for playwrights, for instance, they're like, if I write my play, or you know, if I write my play thinking about the budget and who's gonna pick it up, then I'm not as creative. You know, even though I know a lot of playwrights do that. And actually, I would say that it doesn't hurt it. That's the fear. That's the fear of the other. And I actually think it complements the piece because it forces you to be a little bit more creative, right? So can I do this with one less character? You know, and then also it's like, well, maybe there's a metaphor to be had by the same person playing two different characters or whatever. And then it makes the piece even deeper. Yeah. So it actually, I think it's just fear, and that we need to push through the fear and bring in the business. Because, and actually David Eagleman, who's a neuroscientist who studies the creative brain, he says part of the creative process is bending and breaking the systems that you're used to, that you get used to and that you are comfortable with. So when you bring in something that makes you uncomfortable, like business, it actually makes you more creative, and it's a positive thing in your brain, and it can only enhance your art. It's just a matter of getting past the fear of it. And that's #arts-meets-biz.
I absolutely love that. What I see from artists is a lot of things getting in the way, business, day jobs, things like that. But let's talk about things getting in the way.
Yes.
The elephant in the world, which is this whole COVID crisis. Now, I've seen a lot of different reactions. Some are active artists, and some are kind of like waiting and see, and some are not sure. Tell us about how the artist can actually grow as an artist during a period like this. Tell us what this means to the artist mentality.
Yeah, this is an amazing opportunity right now, I think, for artists, because first of all, referring back to this neurology of our brains, it is forcing us out of routine. And so we're in a place where we are scared. There's a lot of misinformation and information, like we just don't know when we're going to go back to normal. And I think the artist mentality is to fixate, for lack of better words, because it's not a negative thing, but to kind of get lost in it as opposed to take it on. And so this is why my book is the Tao of artist development, and this is where the Tao comes in. So the Tao is all about kind of going with the flow, relaxing into the moment and going with the flow. Because when we attach ourselves to where we're going, that is when all these problems start happening, because we've assigned judgment to where we need to be, and God forbid something happens, we lose course. As opposed to staying present, understanding where you want to be, like your vision. So I do vision work, right? Understanding what the vision of your purpose and your vision of your work is, and then staying true to that, so that anything life's going to throw at you, because we all know life is unpredictable. I've got so many blogs about this, by the way, on my website. Like we didn't know. This is the perfect example, pandemic. We did not know we were going to be here. But also, what about the people like my generation who grew up, preparing for a job, like the best jobs of today, arguably Google, and all these tech companies, that didn't exist when we were preparing for the best jobs, So the whole point is that we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So instead of trying to spend so much time building a direction, I would say cultivate the art, and focus on the art itself. So as far as theater goes, it would be a play, like you can be building a play. If you're a playwright, you can be writing the play. If you're even a director, you need to be working with somebody else, but collaborations can still be happening right now. I think it's hard to build a show right now for an audience. This is something that theater artists forget a lot, is that the show ultimately has to be for an audience, not just for you and your friends. And the audience has to be able to relate and get it, basically. So I don't know what a post-pandemic audience looks like yet. I'm starting to kind of figure it out. I think we're all starting to figure it out. But in the beginning, like right when it first started happening, I said, I don't know how to build, I only know how to build a show for a pre-pandemic audience. And audiences are going to be totally different after this. They're going to be fearful. They're going to potentially be sitting 5 feet apart, you know. It's going to be a completely different experience going to the theater. So I think the artists who are making theater need to take that into consideration and change and evolve with it. So for those artists who already have shows and projects that were ready to go that got derailed, yes, they can bring it back, but I would really encourage them to not bring back the same thing, to try to change it, to try to adapt it, even in little ways, because the audience is going to be receiving live entertainment differently. Live entertainment is going to mean something totally different after this.
I still have clients who are like, oh, I don't want to have a Facebook page. I don't want to be on, you know, any kind of social media. But that moving forward, I think digital technologies and understanding is going to be a huge part of the artist. What do you think?
Absolutely. We can't fight it. Excuse me. We can't fight it anymore. And again, that's part of this assigning judgment. This is where the Tao comes in really handy, because we can't control where we're going. And this is the perfect time, I think, to bring up the story of Blockbuster. You know, so for those people that are clinging to an old way of doing things, an old way of life, beware the tides of culture, you know, that will not hesitate to leave you behind, you and your art. But however, I do believe there is always another way. So if they want to completely swear off technology and all of that, fine, but then you need to find another way. You can't force the old way in, again, to a post-pandemic culture. You can't force it. That's what happened to Blockbuster. But what you can do is you can try to adjust and change and find another way. So, you know, again, live entertainment is not going away. It's just changing. So when it comes back, there's still going to be pop-up performances. There'll still be shows in theaters. You don't want to tell anybody there's a right or a wrong, because I'm a Taoist. But if you want an audience beyond your friends and family, you know, you got, and maybe I could see somebody saying, okay, fine, well, maybe my audience are other people that don't like technology. Okay, great. Then then go for that and see if you can make that work. So, you know, again, there's always a way.
I would love for the folks out there who are watching this, or, you know, who maybe have an interest in the kind of work that you know, support that you provide, the coaching, the direction, that sort of thing, to be able to reach you. So what's the best place, or how's the best way to reach you and maybe have a conversation about helping these folks continue that movement towards artistry?
Yeah, I do free consultations right now. We can do it over Zoom. So you can reach out through my website, www.showgoesonproductions.com. And you can, under the development tab that says development, is all my coaching work. So you can schedule a free consultation. Also, my social is very active. So I'm probably most active on Instagram. My Instagram, which is all my socials are at TSGO Prods, PRODS. And I also have a blog on my website, which you can read. That's my free level if you want to learn more. Oh, my YouTube. I'm doing a YouTube series right now. It's really a podcast that I'm broadcasting live on my Facebook page and then posting to YouTube. I'm interviewing artists who I think who are doing things another way, and that I believe are an example for other artists. So I would encourage people to watch my YouTube channel. And also, if they think that they're finding success doing it another way, like if somebody finds a way to avoid technology, reach out to me, please, and share that with me so that I can share that with my followers and everybody. Because again, anyone who's doing something that's in a way that's authentic to themselves and is sustainable, then I want to make sure people are seeing that, because that's how we change the arts as an industry for good.
And I encourage folks out there, reach out to Emileena. She's really a smart, wonderful person who has been involved in a lot of layers of the artistic world. art is going nowhere. It's staying. It's going to continue to be what it is, grow, evolve, and I'm glad that there's someone like you out there to make sure that people, you know, can keep that sort of motivation to be artistic going. Emileena, thank you very much for this wonderful interview. Folks, if you want to reach her, now you know where. And that's it for today's interview with Emileena Pedigo. I'm Roger Gonzalez with LocalTheatreNY.tv. Thank you, Emileena.
Thank you, and shout out to True, by the way, Theater Resources Unlimited, how I met you, and, you know, dear friends of mine as well. So yes. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Yes, absolutely, to True.